An article came out this morning from the Bloomberg Report talking about Hasbro and eOne Entertainment and having to reevaluate their plans in the future in relation to their entertainment brands and everything under the Hasbro umbrella. It's some stuff here that's going to open up to a really interesting discussion about the future, especially of Transformers and live action movies or any kind of entertainment, because of what has been going on over the past couple of days. This article goes on to highlight how Hasbro brings up that, the Big V and the pandemic had a lot to do with the effects of Hollywood box office numbers. And not to mention, during all of that, in October 11th of 2021, the passing of Hasbro CEO Brian Goldner, leading to also a root cause for a lot of the issues that they are having right now. Now, Brian was a big part of Hasbro really finding itself in the new millennium. When Brian became CEO in, I think it was 2001, he had a very different vision than the CEOs that had come before, and he really wanted to revitalize Hasbro, not just some of their bigger brands, but everything else as a whole, and really grow stuff as a media franchise. I talk about Brian and his history in the past and why he was so good and everything in his individual segment that I recorded when he passed away. You could find that in the archives of the podcast. It's a really good read, and it helps you, and a good listen, and it helps you understand where we are today and why a lot of it is thanks to Brian. But one of the big things with Brian was he really wanted Transformers to be a movie again. He really wanted Transformers to have, that platform, because he saw, working with other brands in the past with Bandai and everything, how, that Hollywood stage really brings things in a much more grander scheme and makes stuff mainstream and really helps those brands on multiple levels. Here's the thing. They worked very closely with Paramount. And Paramount was a large part of the success of Transformers that we have today. Brian Goldner was part of the board of directors at Paramount Global, which originally was Viacom, CBS, and stuff. And him being there was very important because whenever the conversations would come up for media properties or movies, those Hasbro brands, more specifically Transformers, would always come up. With him passing away, that strong connection to the board of directors and Paramount Global and all of that, it isn't there anymore. And that's a big issue. And when you're talking like brands like Transformers and G.I. Joe and D&D that right now all still are in that bubble of Paramount, of future properties to come or very recently past properties, it's something that we worry about the future of where that could go. The Bloomberg article goes on to say how Hasbro can take they could take the existing staff that they have from eOne Entertainment and put that in there to make sense of everything. And hopefully they could grow some better relations and everything like that. Or they could just shut down a whole bunch of projects that eOne Entertainment is doing right now, like Yellow Jackets and Designated Survivor, and just kind of focus on doubling up on their own brands and everything like that. Or just sell all of eOne Entertainment, keep what they want to keep from it, and then just refocus their efforts. The sad truth is that's also going on is Paramount had a 5-year deal with Hasbro recently to do movies and all kinds of stuff, and that 5-year deal is ending at the end of this year in 2022, which might lead to Paramount and Hasbro really reevaluating their relationship going into the future. Combined with the fact that eOne Entertainment CEO recently stepped down, it sounds like there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the background. And I think it has a lot to do just really as a fan, when we're looking at what's going on with recent events. Like, what did eOne Entertainment do for, let's say, Hasbro and Transformers? They were instrumental behind the War for Cybertron trilogy Netflix series. It was well received initially, would be trending and everything, but in a grander scheme of things, didn't really make the mark that they had hoped, and it actually got a lot of negative reception from a lot of people who were both fans or even casual fans. They're currently co-producing the Rise of the Beast movie, which is going to debut next summer. So I think a lot of where they're going to be in the future is going to be very reliant on the success of the Rise of the Beast movie, because they also have an untitled Transformers CG animated movie, not animated the brand, but animated as an animation movie that was also planned for July of 2024. But I think that's so far out that if a Rise of the Beast movie does not do well, I think we could call it quits on that one. You know, they also have like a Dungeons and Dragons movie that they're working with Hasbro's other, smaller company, Wizard of the Coast, within that division. So there's a lot of stuff that's still in the near future from eOne Entertainment, Paramount, and Hasbro. But I think that what's really causing this discussion is because of what's just been happening in the recent. The Bumblebee movie broke even. It made money in the box office, but when you factored in major media advertising and all those crazy blitzes, it barely broke even. It really did. The Snake Eyes movie was a major bomb. Didn't do well. Movie-wise, it lost a ton of money. Toy-wise, for Hasbro, it was a waste. It was just not looking good, which is a shame because G.I. Joe is really trying to find its place. And, when you look at Paramount and their other Hasbro ventures that ain't Transformers, when you go even a little more back, G.I. Joe Retaliation, after all the advertising and everything, was also a big loss for them. It was considered a bomb by Paramount and Hasbro because they both lost money both on the toy division and the movie side of things. And then when Paramount is going to have to consider going with Hasbro again, outside of Transformers and G.I. Joe and what might happen with this D&D movie, what else do they have to look at to use as examples? There was that Battleship movie that Hasbro did with Universal Studios, where they lost over $100 million, and that was a huge disaster. And then they look at the disaster was the Gem movie, and the Gem movie was done with Hasbro and their now defunct, Allspark Pictures production, which is now absorbed into eOne Entertainment. That Gem movie also lost tons of money. And what's crazy is like it lost tons of money, and then the director for that Gem movie is now working on a Play-Doh movie for Hasbro, a Play-Doh movie. We are truly living in the worst timeline, I think. It's crazy. But, you have to ask yourself, though, if this is the case, if Hasbro and Paramount are going to go their separate ways, where would Hasbro have to go then to continue producing movies for the Transformer brand? Because let's be real here. You could say, well, maybe they just won't do Transformer movies. Yeah, but when you look at what all your other competition is doing right now, everyone is doing movies. Either be Ninja Turtles or the Marvel brands or the DC brands or even the anime-related stuff is always going to have movies, whether it be Dragon Ball or Pokemon. You can't be left behind on that big silver screen. There has to be something that's up there that even if it doesn't do well, at least it is up there to say, hey, this brand exists, and puts it out there in the cultural, cosmo. Now you have to ask yourself, like, where is Hasbro? Where could they go if they're not going to Paramount? There's when you look at all the other big movie studios, you got Warner Brothers Pictures, you got 20th Century, you got Universal, you got Disney, you got Lionsgate, you got Columbia, you got DreamWorks. There's some of those are the big ones. There's a few others I'm leaving out here. But it's like they could potentially find a place with some of those. I'd hate to say it, but out of all of those I just listed, the one that has the most, I guess we could say, experience, business with each other would have to be Disney. And I would hate it to see Hasbro and Disney work together because Disney's plan is to probably absorb Hasbro. They would love to get all of that and put that in their catalog. And usually how stuff like that happens is from those early relationships. You could go back to the 90s and you could see how much Marvel and Disney had a relationship even back in the 90s and how they were slowly growing that. And Hasbro could potentially be the beginning of something like that too if they work with Disney to do movies of their brands. look, they would have the Disney machine behind them, which is, you got to admit, is a powerful machine. But at the same time, it might also water down and, just dilute the brand completely, which is, I always say that less is more in a lot of ways, and I do agree with that. But I really feel at the end of the day, out of all of those I just listed, even though Disney would be at the top of the list of the one that I could see them working with, even though I would hate that, I still feel that Paramount needs to keep Transformers and Hasbro as a whole, because Paramount needs content for their library. They have their Paramount Plus streaming service, and keeping Hasbro keeps all of those movies, good or bad, in their library. All of those things, and not to mention, they have to go up against other companies. And one day, those contracts that Hasbro has with Netflix and some of those others are going to expire. And then they might be able to get all of those shows that are with Netflix or some of those others onto Paramount. Imagine all of the Transformer shows that have ever existed available on Paramount Plus, and G.I. Joe and D&D and all of this stuff. So I think it would be wise for Paramount personally to stay with Hasbro just because of what could work out in the next 2-3 years when certain contracts end. I mean, look, Paramount is lucky in a lot of ways. They have other big third-party companies, like the Sega stuff with Sonic movies are doing well, and they could continue to grow that. They have a great relationship with Star Trek, and it's all over Paramount Plus and making them plenty of money. And heck, even the growing relationship they have with Ninja Turtles is going well. They have the movies. They could potentially in the future get the TV series on there, and there's another movie planned at some point. So I think it was called Mutant Mayhem. So there's stuff there that I feel that in the end Paramount probably should not break up that relationship and stick with Hasbro, because they have a lot to benefit, even if stuff has been shaky in the recent future. And I'm telling you, a lot of this is going to lean on the success of Rise of the Beasts. If Rise of the Beast doesn't find an audience, because this is mixing it up. This is going, okay, we gave you 5 movies of very G1 flavored characters and all of this. Now we're going to go do some Beast Wars 90s for those 90s kids. If it doesn't find an audience, I'm telling you guys, it's going to be very hard, much like with the case of G.I. Joe, it's going to be very hard for Hasbro to come back and go, what could we do? What could we possibly do to get the attention of audience members now that we've tried Beast Wars and it doesn't work? And not to mention there's been a pretty big gap of time since the Bumblebee movie. So, obviously audiences haven't seen Transformers on the big screen in a while. So this could be a good thing. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, something that's different this time around with a 90s brand, with a different generation of kids that grew up on Transformers and new characters. And it's not just Optimus Prime all over again. There's going to be other characters in there too. Hopefully it'll work out. And it's very important that it works out, because that's going to be very key to what is probably going to be the decisions on a corporate level forward with eOne Entertainment, Paramount, and Hasbro, and what they're going to be doing marching forward. In relation also to what's going on with Rise of the Beast, we're probably going to be seeing finally some real hardcore images and footage very soon, because exactly as of this recording, about a month from now, is going to be the Branding Licensing Europe 2022 Expo. And the Branding Licensing Europe Expo, for people who don't remember, in 2018, just a couple years ago, that's where we first saw a lot of our Bumblebee movie stuff. In 2016, that's where we saw some of our very first Transformers The Last Night stuff, but be it, character designs, visual designs of the art, or, trailers, or even teaser trailers. So chances are we're going to probably be seeing something in less than a month from now at this. And keep in mind that the Branding Expo Europe is heavily sponsored by Hasbro. They have one of the biggest booths at that convention, and they're probably going to be doing a whole bunch of different, reveals and everything there from a branding standpoint, and especially from a movie standpoint. I know that they do on the schedule here, they have a panel that's going to be the building in a post-pandemic retail and licensing strategy world. So they are going to be addressing that, which they do feel, and I agree with them, is it was a lot of things that hurt a lot of different brands and stuff. So, and different segmentations of it. But I think that we're going to probably learn more, at least in terms of what is Rise of the Beasts in a bigger sense, very soon, in less than a month. So that too. There's, I mean, there again, these Bloomberg reports, it's a lot of corporate speak. It's a lot of numbers and, this guy's quitting, this guy's coming back, and how this might make a difference or not. But what you could take away from it more than anything is at the end of this year, Paramount is going to have to make a decision. They're going to have to make a decision to stick with it or move forward. And it's sad because they're going to have to make a decision without knowing the success of Rise of the Beast, because probably they planned the contract to end in 2022 because they would have already had Rise of the Beast behind them when Rise of the Beast was originally planned for the summer of 2022. And then they could have went, okay, that movie was successful or not. Then we could see if we move forward with this company. So it's going to be very dicey. Let me know what you think, but the future is a little shaky. It really is. And I always feel at the end of the day, we don't have too much we have to worry about because the Transformer brand always endures and finds another place and always continues onward. But at the same time, when you have stuff like this, it kind of also knocks down all the building blocks when stuff is planned out. Let me know what you think, guys. Very interesting otherwise.